class, Michelle Davis here, streaming from you live from the YouTube video in the University of Phoenix, San Marcos campus. Anyways, I'm really excited about watching this movie again with a whole different perspective of addiction and dependency and seeing what the stages of change are and the biopsychosocial effects. I mean, I just watched this movie in a whole different light. Especially, this is a great one about Ray because it is a true story about him. So it was just really neat, just getting to know him a little bit better through his addiction and through just the different things we've been learning. So I'm going to start off talking about the background of Ray. He was born in 1930. Mark is going to take the second half of his life. I'll take the first half, and hopefully you can hear and see me well. So I'm going to first start talking about how he grew up in the 1930s, just on southern, I want to say, oh, I forgot the state, but anyways, in the South. So, you know, there was a lot of racism back then in the 30s. It was back when still the blacks were having to sit in the back of the bus. He was living with poverty from, I think his mom was a single mom. He never showed his dad. He even mentioned later on that he wasn't raised by his dad, so his mom had to work hard for both the kids. He was the oldest of two. His brother was about a year or two younger than him. And you could just tell in the video, like, they lived in poverty. The boys didn't really have any toys to play with. They seemed to play on their own pretty well, you know, just outside running how they used to. They were usually barefoot. He would run over, though, in this restaurant. This older man, as you can see, this is the picture of him getting piano lessons before he lost his sight. So he was getting some, like, kind of blues, jazz type of piano lessons from this gentleman, and he really enjoyed it and really picked it up really quick, and he was really good at it at such a young age before he lost his sight. But so, again, like I said, he was dealing with the poverty. His mom was washing clothes. I think she mentioned, like, she would make, you know, $1 or $2 a week maybe in coins per week. She was washing sheets and drying them for the white people, she said. So at 7 was getting the piano lessons, and then a little bit later at the same age, about 7, his little brother, like I said, he's about a year or two younger. He's standing up on the table, and there's this wash tub, you know, big enough for his brother to fall into, and Ray was just about 10 feet away from him, just watched him go in, and his mouth's just open, and he's just watched him fall, and he's struggling to get out. His brother's struggling to get out, and Ray just watched him the whole time struggle, didn't help him, just kind of was in shock and watched his brother pretty much drown from about 10 feet away in this little wash tub, and you saw his little feet hanging out. And so this was a really traumatic experience for him. Like I said, he could still see at this point. He's watching his brother struggle, but he was just kind of stuck in this moment and wasn't able to help him. And his mother came running out of the house and was freaking out, pulled him out. Of course, I don't think they knew about CPR back then, so he died instantly, and his brother just felt helpless, and he got blamed. The mother was like, "Why didn't you do anything? Why didn't you do anything?" He's screaming at him. So there's a lot of guilt on him there at a young age, and throughout his life he's dealing with a lot of flashbacks and hallucinations of, you know, actually feeling that water, even though he, I'll talk about it later, but blind, you know, and feeling his brother's leg and having hallucinations, and just those flashbacks of what he could see when he was 7 of his mother giving him that talk about why didn't you save him, and just that guilt just, you know, really on him with the flashbacks and the hallucinations and remembering that moment. So about 9 months later, after his brother's death, he slowly started losing his eyesight. His tears would just come out. He wouldn't know why. His mother didn't know why. The doctor said there wasn't much they could do, but they gave him some medicine, but you could slowly see that white covering over his eyes, you know, and his sight just slowly went away, and it went from blurry to just nothing at all. And so both of his eyes went blind. He would constantly be rubbing his eyes, and then eventually the tearing stopped from his eyes, and his mother just realized there was nothing else she could do for him. But what she did do for him was give him that mother's tough love and tell him, you know, you need to learn on your own. If I help you with everything, you're never going to learn how to live on your own. She knew she wasn't always going to be able to be there for him, so she provided him that strength for him, and just watched him try to learn on his own and learn how to use his hearing as his senses and his feeling, and try to learn how to be blind. And so one day he ran into the house, and this was in the movie as well, and he ran into the table and fell, and he's crying for mom, and she's watching him and trying to see if he could do it on his own. So finally he realized, okay, I got to figure this out on my own. And all of a sudden he just stopped, and used his senses, and that's the picture of him. He found this little cricket. He heard the cricket, which normally he probably wouldn't have took the time as a little 7-year-old boy to hear it, because he's playing and just busy and talking, and now that he's having to use his senses. And so that's him holding the cricket. He was just so happy he was able to find it. And then he hears the trees, he hears the birds, and then he's like, Mom, I know you're there. And so she was just so proud of him for that moment, that she knew at that point that was really a big moment for him. And so she ended up sending him off to a blind school. He begged her not to go, but of course, being her only son, that was really hard for him. So he left at the age of almost about 8. So let's see, go on to the next slide. So moving on now to the 1940s. His mom died in 1946, and I'm assuming just from reading and from what I know from the movie, he kept continuing with his piano lessons and kept doing it even though he's blind, and gotten better and better. So after his mom died, he moved cross-country, tried to move cross-country on this bus. He goes up to this bus. He's planning on going to an audition in Seattle, Washington. So it's a long, over 3,000-mile bus drive. And the driver's white, and he's like, I'm not going to babysit you. Not only are you blind, you're black, and I'm not going to babysit you. And so he told him that he got blind. He went blind because of the war. So then he felt bad for him, and of course he didn't tell him the truth, but this is how he had to get around, because he was dealing with not only racism all the time, but then because of his disability. So he gets to his first audition. He's kind of nervous. He's saying, can I get a little bit more time? And they're like, no. And everyone's giving him a hard time, like, what? A blind man's going to go up there and sing and play the piano? And nobody could believe it, So not only is it a guy rising up from discrimination from his disability, but then he's also rising up from, poverty and everything else. So he's just determined. His mom kept telling him, you're going to make it. So he was determined, and he wanted, to do this, it seemed like, for his mom. But so anyways, back to his audition, the gentleman came up to him and told him, this will calm you down. So gave him a hit of marijuana, calmed him down, got a little addicted to that then, because he knew the marijuana would calm his nerves down before he went up on stage. So that kind of helped him feel better about going up on stage and playing the music and be a little bit more relaxed. He started getting taken advantage of. He was starting to sleep with his manager. The manager and his other buddies started taking advantage of him. He started realizing that they were paying him less. So he started having people give him all his money in one, so he would know that he wasn't getting screwed over with money. People just, were going off and going with the ladies, and he didn't have a lot of confidence because no one was really hanging out with him. Nobody was including him on anything, and he was kind of a loner and he was still now having these hallucinations and these flashbacks from when he was younger, and he kept thinking like he would fall into the water and feel his brother's legs, and that he felt hopeless still, and that still kept coming back to him. So to get rid of those hallucinations, he asked to get a hit of heroin, and they kept telling him he didn't want it, they didn't invite him, he just wanted it on his own. So he tried it, and they told him, you're going to feel a little pinch, and he's like, just give it to me, I know what I'm getting into, let it be my own death. So got hooked on heroin, kept doing it with his band members. There's a little picture of all the heroin tools that he would use. So moved to LA, now he's in LA, and 1950 is his first hit of heroin from his band members, and and he got hooked. So 1952, went to Atlantic Records, and started making records with them. Did really well, fell in love. There's a picture of, he calls her B. He was doing heroin, she didn't know it, he kept it behind her back. They dated for a little while, fell in love, got married, went into a house, they bought a house together. He knew he was going to be on the road a lot, but he was still doing the heroin, and she finally went up and she found his stash of the heroin tools that he uses, and she confronted him. She's way out here pregnant now with their first baby, and he's scared about having a baby, but she's confronted, she confronted him about the heroin, trying to tell him, you don't bring this in the house, and said how these things, why she didn't want it. She's a strong Christian, he goes to church, and he's always on the road. He says, I'm gonna do what I want, it's just, she says, or he said, what was it specifically? He said, it's not like I'm selling it, so he's minimizing it at this now. Nothing she's saying is meaning anything to him. He's still in pre-contemplative. He's not even considering. He's just saying, I'm not selling it, and I'm doing well. I'm not going to bring it to the house. If it was jeopardizing me or jeopardizing you or the baby, then I'd stop, but it's not, so I'm going to continue. So right after that, he goes on the road, he leaves, and he starts having an affair with this lady. You know, in the hotels, every time he's on the road, he's having the second life, really, with this lady, but he's tells himself that he's true to his family, true to his baby. You know, his baby was born in 1955. He was kind of scared to hold the baby. Not only is he blind, but he said he's scared. He never had a father figure, so he doesn't know how to be a father. So that was really scary for him. So every time he was on the road, and even then now at home, he was hiding it and somehow still doing heroin. And you know, the wife kind of knew about an affair going on. She didn't really talk to him much about the heroin. She tried to get him to quit a few other times, and even another time when the kids, they had 2 kids later, she kept, you know, telling him he needed to quit, but he was doing so well and said this is his thing, that, you know, he doesn't affect the family, so he's still in pre-contemplative stage and had no sense that he needed to quit at all, didn't care how much she wanted him. You know, in 1958, he started that, like, junkie itch and the twitching, and the manager and the band members confronted him on it and said he needed to quit, but he said, you know, it's not affecting, I'm on top of the charts, I'm doing the best, just let me do my thing. And so they just kind of let him do it. And in 1959, he's on the top of the Billboard chart, and he still continued to use heroin. You'll see in a video that I think the team members are going to show that junkie itch, and the band members are confronting him, or not the band, but the manager, you know, and everyone knows he's doing it. It's evident, and he just doesn't think it's a problem at all still. He's doing fine, and he's continuing to hide out, and it's relaxing him. So that's my part. Now on to Mark.